Hey, what's up everybody? How you doing? Welcome back to Karpo Gaming and another Diablo 4 video. Well, it's about that time. I finally hit level 100 a few days ago. And ever since then, I've been working on this video to get you ready for my in-game Shadow Twisting Blades build. And it is amazing. Not only you increase your survivability, but you'll be able to get amazing, was that 875,000? Yes, it was. Like I said, some amazing crits. 400, 300,000 all the time, my dude. This build is so good, you will be surviving things you will otherwise would not be able to. So let's go. Once again, thanks for watching, everybody. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's get started. Now, this build is awesome. And trust me, I've been using the momentum key passive and I went back to this. You'll be able to survive some things you otherwise shouldn't be able to survive. I'm talking about getting hit with multiple procs of ice, poison, and fire. And it doesn't matter because this build is awesome. You're able to pick up your friends and when they're down, as well as do some of the highest in-game content solo or in a group as well. Yep, I just survived that just standing right here with no worries whatsoever. So let's get started with the build. First off, let's look at the gear. The helmet, Cowl of the Nameless, is unique. No worries, if you don't get this, I'll have and show you the other helmet that I got. But this one is really cool. You got dexterity cooldown reduction, crowd control duration, maximum energy, and you gain 22% increased lucky hit chance against crowd control enemies. And since enemies are always crowd controlled, hey, we're going to get all of these effects. And then I plugged in a gem to increase my maximum life. This is the helmet I was using before with ranks of imbuement, as well as the imprint. You're going to get less damage from crowd control enemies. Our chest piece is still looking like this, and I got it at level 67. As soon as I get a better chest piece, I will. We are going to be using this one because we got cutthroat skill damage, damage reduction from poison damage, and poison damage. It's going to be imprinted with the aspect you can get from the dungeon, right? You gain a 0.5% increase armor for 4 seconds, up to 50%. So yeah, most of this build you can get from just doing the dungeons. The arm piece is awesome. 3 ranks of twisting blades, critical strike chance, lucky hit chance, and dexterity, and also comes with the imprint. Lucky hit dealing direct damage to vulnerable enemies has a 43% chance to daze them for 2 seconds. Since we all about lucky hit, it procs quite a bit. Now our pants, it will be our unique pants. I'll show you the pants I was using before this, but the temerity is awesome. 20 plus stats, 31% potion drop chance, a lucky hit as well, 5% chance to heal for life, 17.3 healing received, and the effects that heal you beyond 100% life grant you a barrier up to 56% of your maximum life that lasts for 8 seconds. So basically, as long as you just pop a potion pill, you're going to have that barrier. It's going to synergize with everything else. But here are the pants I was using before, which actually gave me quite a bit of damage. 3+ ranks to poison and dark shroud, as well as some stats and reduction from close enemies. So that was what I was using before I picked up the temerities. The gloves, the helmets, the pants, and now the boots. The patient greaves, also another unique. I'll show you what I was using before, but this one is really cool. You can use it on any class as well. We got movement speed, crowd control duration, slow duration, cold resistance, and we're going to leave a trail that chills enemies and deal 9% more damage to them as well. Now, when it comes to our weapons, we're going to plug in some lovely green gems to boost up our damage, but I went with dexterity. I also went with all stats just to boost up my dexterity, but the other 2 different traits, damage over time, critical strike damage, can definitely a whole lot better. But the imprint twisting blades, check out that video right there. That is how you can get it. You can get that from the codex power as well. Now our amulet is going to be one that I've had for quite some time. I only got damage, 3 ranks to exploit passive, and 3 ranks of imbuement. Can be a whole lot better. I got some that I'm trying to re-roll, but it's also imprinted with what bring this build together, and that is each stack of momentum key passive heals us for 323, which is amazing. Our ring is also cool. Imbue skill damage, vulnerable damage, damage to close enemy, critical strike damage, And also imprinted, killing a vulnerable enemy grants you 50% increased energy regeneration for 4 seconds. This also can be acquired from the Codex of Power as well. Now, we also going to go with our next ring, which is going to be pretty awesome. Crit strike, chance, vulnerable damage, physical damage, and critical strike damage. And it's also imprinted, and this is going to be huge, pretty much for any class. Restore 4 of your primary resources when you crowd control enemies. And since we crowd control enemies, we're going to be getting that back. Our sword is going to have damage to stun enemies. Dexterity, vulnerable damage, and damage to close. Damage to stun enemies can definitely be swapped out for something better, but it's also going to be imprinted, deal 25% increased damage when we have a barrier active, and we always are going to have our barrier active, so 25% extra damage. Our other sword, vulnerable damage, damage to crowd control enemies, damage to close enemies, excellent, and dexterity, and 20% increase base damage when you have your available resource when cast. So this is pretty much an excellent roll right here for this sword as well. Our specialization, we're going to go with Inner Sight. So once we fill that up, we have unlimited energy. And here is our skill tree. Everybody is using puncture, but we actually are not going to be using this. We just plugging in the points right now to build out our tree. Our main ability we're going to be using is Twisty Blades. So get that up as high as possible as you can. More damage, more better, more fun. And of course, we're going to run it out with Advanced Twisting Blades. We're going to come down here and plug in 3 to Sturdy with increased close damage reduction, 12%. And you could max this out, but I went with 2 until I get more points. I will be putting that there. Came down here, plugged in 1 point into Shadow Step, 1 point into Enhance, and 1 point into Methodical Shadow Step. And also maxed out Weapon Mastery. Since we have swords, we get 9% increased damage. Pretty nice. Now over here, I did plug in just 1 point into Concussive so we can get that critical strike chance, and 1 point into Trick Attack, so when they knock down, it can be a little bit more beneficial for our critical strikes. 1 point into Dark Shroud, 1 point into Enhanced Dark Shroud, and 1 point into Subverting Dark Shroud to increase our damage reduction. And I put in a couple points into Poison Trap to help boost up the damage, enhance Poison Trap, and then countering Poison Trap. So every now and then we can get our Shadow Imbuement back. Maxed out the Exploit, plus I have a couple ranks from our lovely Amulet, and maxed out Malice as well. Now when we come down here, I only have 2 ranks in there. I want to max it out as soon as I get more points, but 1 point into Shadow Crash, I put 2 points into here. Of course it should be maxed out, but I'm getting my energy back, so until I get my extra points, I'm good. Also, Shadow Imbuement, we're going to rank that all the way out, all the way up to Blended Shadow Imbuement, so we're going to be getting vulnerable. They're going to explode on enemies, excellent for crowd control, excellent for groups of enemies. I know a lot of people use Poison Imbuement, and I've tried it, and it's good, but I still love my Shadow. We're going to go with 1 point in Deadly Venom, maxed out Debilitating Toxin, because we're going to be pretty much proccing that all the time, so more damage reduction. 1 point into a.k.a. Advantage to help speed us up a little bit. 1 point into Frigid. I will be putting another point in as soon as I get more points. And of course, we're going to come down here to our ultimate skills. 1 point into Innovation, because we are going to get that lucky hit chance to get that back as well. And 1 point into Trap Skills, another point into Trap Skill, and then another point to increase our crit chances. And then we're going to round it off with Death Trap, Prime Death Trap, and Supreme Death Trap. And then this is where things get a little bit interesting. A lot of people, and even me, was using Exposure. You're able to get your Death Trap back, and you can stun enemies. It's amazing. I went from there back to Momentum because it just works out so much better, at least for me, when it came into survivability, into doing higher tier nightmare dungeons. Here is the Paragon Board. Went off to the right and got this one note right here, Prime increased damage, and swung around to the left side to get that resistance, right? I went with this glyph, the Closer glyph, to increase my Cutthroat skill damage, and while wielding a melee weapon, 10% reduced damage. But you can use this glyph exploit first if you want to get your vulnerable damage up, but that is how I built out my tree first. Okay, so I went with that glyph socket for my very first Paragon board. All right, we're going to round it off to our first attachment. Now, our first attachment, I went with exploit weakness for a couple of reasons. Not only will we be able to get a little bit of vulnerable damage from that legendary node, but I came over here to plug in this glyph socket and it works out perfect over here. And that is going to be the combat, right? Because we're going to be using intelligence, and you don't get a whole bunch of intelligence on this board. We're going to get critical strike chance, and when we critical strike with our twisting blades, we're going to be getting our energy back. Vulnerable damage nodes over here, as well as the amazing hunter killer. We love damage to elites, am I right? So we're going to be rounding off that, plugging in other nodes. Up here, I'm going to swing up and grab this resistance to cold. Why? Because we're making our way to our legendary node. Might as well pick it up, and there's the exploit weakness. Now that I got that, I went back up here to the top, picked up a little bit of armor and damage reduction from vulnerable enemies. Since they're all going to be vulnerable, more damage reduction is a beautiful thing. From this node, this glyph, I went up to the top right here to attach another board, and then up here to the top, more vulnerable damage. Alright, so that's the reason why I took this as my next board, and then bridged off to the left and bridged off to the right with more board attachments. To the left, we actually aren't going to be using the glyph, but to the right, we are. So let's go to the right. This, I'm just need one more node and I'll be 30% more damage to crowd control enemies, which is awesome. Down here, we have damage reduction, which is always good. Damage reduction from elites. Then we're going to make our way to our cheap shot. That's right, you deal 5% increased damage to nearby enemies that has crowd control up to 25%. Since they're always crowd control, this is definitely a bonus. Now we're going to be making our way up to our glyph. Along the way, we're going to get more damage reduction. Damage reduction from slowed enemies. Since they're already going to be slowed because they're chilled, we get that effect, right? And then we have our glyph right here, control. I got a whopping 64.2% damage to crowd control enemies and 10% increased damage to slowed or chilled enemies instead of 20% when they are frozen. And then I went right back up here to the top to round it off. More damage control to crowd control enemies. And I'm real close to hitting that node right there as well. So, you know, we can still get more damage out of it. Swung back down to the bottom to grab the damage to healthy enemies and a whopping 50% damage to healthy enemies. And that's going to end that tree right there. But to the left, we plugged in another Paragon board. This time, we're going to be going with Eldritch Bounty. That's right, it's all about imbuement skills. If you are an imbuement type of guy, poison or shadow, definitely going to work out for you. 20% resistance, 20% increased damage for 6 seconds whenever we use our imbuement. And you come down here and hit more of these imbuement nodes, 30% increased skill damage. So yeah, it's rounding out to be pretty good. And then I finally came down to my final tree right here, which will be the lovely exploit. Yep, vulnerable damage up the yin yang. Everybody needs vulnerable damage in here. And when they touch us, they're going to get vulnerable as well. So yeah, you're going to be proccing vulnerable all the time with this. So it's extremely important for every class to have that. Then I went back over here and grabbed these other nodes for a little bit more damage reduction from trap skills as well. The only few nodes that I didn't get the bonus rank just because of the high strength are the high intellect. But other than that, we're pretty much good to go. We're going to finish off this board and swing it all the way back down here to hit our legendary node, which is Deadly Ambush. We deal 23% increased damage to enemies that are affected by our trap skill, so 23% increased critical strike damage. Oh boy, yes. Now let's go over some of our abilities. You can see we have a very high dexterity, which means we're going to have a very high chance to get very high numbers. We're going to increase our skill damage and our dodge chance as well. Always want to push that up. That is a multiplier when you are using your roll. High critical strike chance. Push that up as much as possible. Mine's at 33.3. It's decent. 122.5 on the critical strike damage. Both of those are going to work together to push up those high numbers. Critical strike damage with imbued skills. So as soon as we go imbued, all of that critical strike damage is going to be additive together, which is pretty nice. And then we have some overpower chance, and damage really don't affect us too much on the build, but the vulnerable damage at 273.7% is pretty nice. And we can push that up even higher with the Paragon Board. All damage, also damage versus elites, which I like pretty good. 56.6%, I like that, can definitely be pushed higher a little bit with Paragon Board, as well as damage versus crowd control, 118.1%. It can definitely be pushed higher, and I like that one a lot, just because we're crowd controlling enemies with the slowdown, with the boots, with the poison. It's nice, it's nice. And all of these other damages are all additive. Damage versus stun, damage versus close, damage versus healthy at 75%, which is nice and can be pushed a little bit higher with the Paragon Board. Damage versus injured, I want to get higher. Damage versus trap, damage versus physical. Then we got damage versus fire, lightning, cold, poison, shadow, all around 10%, but damage with poison 28.1, because we got a couple of those being pushed up because of our effects from our gear. And then damage versus shadow over time, damage versus burning, bleeding, all is 37.5%, as well as damage versus cutthroat 57.2, which can be pushed higher with the Paragon Board, and damage versus imbued at 62.3. Lucky hit life chance is really good, but all of these resistances, you really don't have to worry about that because of the build and the way it's set up. So that's really good, but those are some of the different damage reduction. But with this build is really hinged on this lucky hit chance, and ours is at 15.3, but when you add on the helmet as well, you're sitting there almost close to 40% on lucky hit chance. So you're going to be proccing whatever lucky hit chance you want on this build. It is absolutely fantastic. And when you put all of this together, my dude, you have yourself a really good in-game build with the Rogue. Like I said, this build is awesome. You were able to go into groups of enemies and just face tank them. I should be dead right here. Fire, ice, poison, enemy swiping at me, and I survive. Why? All because of the key passive and all of those different uniques, different abilities synergizing together make this tank build amazing. Not only do you get amazing crit damage, be able to survive in game as well, solo or in a group as well. So boom, there you have it. That is my build, and I hope you truly enjoyed this video. As always, if you're new to the channel, how you doing, and welcome. Don't forget to subscribe right here at Karpo Gaming. A little wide variety of videos range from updates, tips and tricks, guides and news, and a whole lot more. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. Once again, thank you everybody for all your love and support, and as always, I'll be seeing y'all in the next one. Later.